Welcome back, sleepyheads. You've arrived on a night when pressure finally outpaces concrete. Before Silas steps in the frame, a brief word from the voice behind the clock. You know, the one who sets these walks in motion and knows when it's time to let them breathe. Berlin, 1989. Weeks of protest. A system thinning at the seams. Moscow quietly signaling it will not send tanks this time. And then, one tired official, one misplaced sentence, one dangerous word spoken aloud. Immediately, the city hears permission. By nightfall, people drift toward checkpoints that were never meant to open. Guards hesitate. Orders never arrive. History pauses, just long enough to decide whether it's brave. It's the perfect place for a quiet walk, not because it's peaceful, but because no one yet knows what this night is about to become. If you enjoy wandering through the moments where the world changes through equal parts accident and courage, settle in, join the sleepy circle, and let's begin.
Chapter 1 The Crack in the Cold. Welcome, listeners. I'm Silas, your mildly sleep-deprived tour guide through humanity's favorite hobby, chaos. If you like the sound of me whispering history while narrowly avoiding injury, go ahead and tap like. It helps more dreamers stumble into the timeline. Subscribe, ring the bell, and tell me where you're listening from. I promise not to show up. Unless you're hoarding vintage East German beer, in which case I make no promises. Pause, softer. Now, breathe in the cold. We're back in Berlin. The year is 1989. The air tastes like metal and change, and tonight, freedom's about to forget its indoor voice. The first thing that hits me isn't the crowd, it's the sound of them. A human pressure cooker, hissing through wool scarves and cheap vodka breath. Thousands packed shoulder to shoulder in a November drizzle that can't decide if it's rain or tears. The lamps above the checkpoint sputter yellow, halos into the fog, each one haloing a face that doesn't quite believe it yet. A line of guards stands stiff behind the barrier. Their helmets gleam like second thoughts. Radios crackle nonsense. Orders loop, contradict, dissolve. Someone somewhere is shouting for clarity, but clarity has taken the night off. I slip closer, pretending to belong to any of the dozens of worlds colliding here. Workers in gray coats, students with banners, mothers clutching toddlers too young to appreciate democracy. The air buzzes, not with certainty, but with the voltage of maybe. One soldier, barely 20, keeps glancing over his shoulder toward the guardhouse like a man waiting for permission from his own conscience. Static hisses again. Another officer snaps at him. He snaps back. I can't hear the words, but the rhythm says mutiny. Someone tosses a bottle. Glass bursts. A scream follows. Then laughter, which is worse. Laughter means the crowd's decided fear's too expensive to maintain. Then it happens. The young soldier grips the lever of the gate, lips trembling, and mutters the phrase that detonates the century. Scheiß drauf. To hell with it. He lifts the barrier. The air breaks. Not metaphorically, physically. It expands, roars, becomes wind made of lungs. People surge forward, gasping, shouting, crying, laughing, praying in every language East Germany ever tried to suppress. And me? I do what any responsible historian would. I take a sip. Then another. Then another. The flask burns with bad whiskey and good timing. For one perfect heartbeat, I am buzzed on history itself. The border that divided the world has just turned into a hallway, and we're all stumbling through it without a map. I tilt my head back, watching breath rise like smoke signals to the indifferent stars. Somewhere, a woman sings, off-key but pure, and I swear even the watchtowers lean in to listen. The concrete smells of wet paint, diesel, and overdue redemption. Freedom, it turns out, has body odor. The buzz hits my bloodstream exactly as the crowd decides that gates are optional and momentum is mandatory. A ripple becomes a shove becomes a tide. The flood is laughter on one side, panic on the other. I try to move sideways. Bad strategy in a human river. A man hugs me, crying. A woman screams she's finally free. Someone else picks my pocket and then apologizes. The stones beneath us are slick, polished by rain and revolution. Boots slip, knees buckle, elbows flail. I feel the press close in, bodies welded by history's heat. For a second, the air disappears. I can't move. Someone's scarf winds around my wrist. Another hand grabs my shoulder for balance or survival. It's the same thing tonight. Then the world tilts. My foot catches a broken cobblestone. I go down hard, knee first, palms scraping the wet grit. The roar above me doubles. 1,000 feet churn the street like surf, and I realize with terrifying clarity that I might be about to become the first casualty of peace. Really? I manage to grunt. Trampled by freedom? Poetic, but rude. I curl in, elbows tight, chin tucked, fetal position, the universal posture of people who suddenly regret being symbolic. Boots graze my back, slam near my ribs. The ground shakes with joy, heavy enough to kill. I can smell leather, sweat, rain, ozone, everything human condensed into one desperate exhale. Somewhere a bottle breaks. Somewhere else, a child laughs high above it all, carried on someone's shoulders through the stampede. I press my cheek to the stone and count heartbeats that don't feel like mine. If this is how I go, at least the headline will slap. Time traveler flattened by hope. But the universe blinks, mercifully. The wave shifts a meter left, giving me air. I twist, shove upward, knees screaming. A boot nearly finds my hand. I yank it away and stagger upright into a blur of flags, raincoats, and flashbulbs. Someone's camera pops in my face, freezing me mid-gasp, like a startled ghost in tomorrow's newspaper. The bridge trembles under the weight of people crossing it both ways. East to west, west to east, everyone suddenly nostalgic for the side they're leaving. A young man vaults the railing and lands in a puddle, kisses the asphalt, weeps, laughs, repeats. Cars honk, not in anger, but applause. Some driver leans out a window and hands strangers beer. Bottles clink like ceremonial bells. I stumble to the side, shoulder scraping a brick wall painted with slogans already out of date. A woman collapses nearby, sobbing into her hands. And another stranger, maybe west, maybe east, who can tell anymore, kneels to hold her. No one speaks the same language, but grief and relief don't require subtitles. My legs wobble, adrenaline fading into aftershock. I duck down an alley where the noise drops from thunder to heartbeat. The cobblestones there glisten, black glass under moonlight. Steam curls from a manhole like the city, exhaling. Behind me, the crowd keeps roaring, uncontainable, unstoppable, like a dam giving birth to a river that forgot why it was trapped. I lean against the wall, panting, half laughing, half terrified. My flask is gone, either a casualty or a donation to the cause. My coat's torn at the sleeve. My hands shake as if still applauding. I listen. The echo of chants, the metallic rattle of the raised gate, the low hum of 1,000 lives rebooting. Somewhere distant, church bells start, hesitant at first, then confident, as if they've been waiting decades for the right cue. The rain softens. My reflection wavers in the puddle at my feet. Eyes wide, hair plastered, one side of my face smeared with history's mud. I look ridiculous. I look alive. Freedom isn't gentle, I say to the puddle. It rushes in like floodwater and asks questions later. The puddle does not disagree. I step back toward the light of the bridge. People are still crossing, slower now, savoring it, the long exhale after 4 decades of held breath. Cars inch forward, headlights cutting golden paths through the mist. Children wave tiny flags made of napkins and pen ink. Someone sets off a firework, a single green streak that bursts above the checkpoint and reflects in every wet surface, turning the whole street emerald for half a heartbeat. It is the most beautiful, least organized miracle I have ever seen. I walk a few paces further, boots splashing, letting the sound of the crowd fill the space where fear used to live. Each cheer rises like an organ chord, dissonant but holy. Men climb lampposts to hug strangers. Women throw flowers that stick to wet helmets. Soldiers grin like schoolboys caught skipping duty. The city, gray, cracked, divided, suddenly glows from the inside out. For decades, Berlin has been two hearts beating out of sync. Tonight they find the same rhythm, and it's loud enough to wake the dead, and possibly a few bureaucrats. I watch until my vision blurs. Not from tears, of course, just atmospheric interference. When I finally turn away, the checkpoint gate is still raised, trembling slightly in the breeze like it's relieved too. The night has changed temperature. The Cold War just lost its adjective. Stay close, I murmur. The city's only just begun to breathe. We'll follow the noise to Alexanderplatz next, where words, fists, and history share the same microphone. But for now, listen. That sound? That's the hinge of the world creaking open. Chapter 2. Sparks over stone. The rain has thinned to a mist that can't commit, like a politician in election season. My coat sticky with jubilation and beer, and Berlin hums like a power station finally allowed to exhale. We aim for the place where speeches go to grow legs. Alexanderplatz. The TV tower spears the clouds like a silver metronome, ticking off a brand new tempo for an old city. Its bulb glows a tired white, blinking through the fog as if even the Fernsehturm can't believe the test results. Below, Alexanderplatz is a mosaic of wet flags, damp posters, and faces extended into the future like open palms. The square breathes and pulses. Chants rise. Banners tilt. 1,000 boots rearrange the puddles into continent-shaped islands. Someone drags a tinny loudspeaker onto a crate, and for a second the audio coughs like it just quit smoking. Then a voice catches, shaky and furious, a man threading syllables through rain. Freiheit. Jetzt. The crowd answers with a wave of noise that rakes the glass facades, rattles the tram lines, and climbs the stairs of the world clock as if time itself needs an escort. On my left, a woman carries a bouquet of carnations that look determined to outlast regimes. She tucks them into the crack of a poster peeling from a wall, red petals against older glue. On my right, a group of students hold a banner that sagged in the drizzle until the letters bleed together. Freedom's first draft. An old man in a brown overcoat stands very still with his hat in his hands, like he's inside a church he didn't believe he would live to see again. The clash begins the way these things always do, with cloth. 2 flags, one old, one new, collide like migrating birds confused by a lighthouse. A Stasi gray remnant with a hammer and compass emblem is yanked from a pole by a skinny kid with a guitar pick stuck in his hair. He wrings the fabric like a wet rag. A woman in a factory coat snatches the other end back, eyes flaring with the kind of loyalty that doesn't check for expiration dates. They tug in opposite directions until ideology becomes soggy rope. Around them, hands leap in. Fists find jackets. Banners become shields. "Leave it," someone shouts. "Burn it," someone else counters. "No more burning," a third voice pleads, voice breaking on the edge of history. The TV tower blinks, a patient cyclops watching toddlers argue over the sandbox. I wedge, sideways, palms open, the universal mime for "don't mind me," just trespassing elegantly. The flags tear. The emblem splits with a sound like wet paper giving up. Half of it vanishes into the crowd. The other half is lifted high on a broom handle, a relic hoisted like a relic should never be hoisted. A boy climbs the base of a street lamp, boots squealing on the slick steel, and begins knotting a tricolor scarf to the post. Wind whips it once, new colors tasting altitude, then settles. The square howls approval. A man near the world clock starts yelling the names of cities like charms. Prague, Budapest, Warsaw. With each name, 100 throats answer, and the clock, still insisting on times for Tokyo and New York, looks genuinely embarrassed not to list tomorrow. A tremor runs through the crowd that has nothing to do with cheering. It's the animal quiet before thunder, the silence that knows its lines. I tilt my head. High above, past the mist, a silhouette perches on the crown of a building, sharp edges against a pearled sky. It's a person, not a gargoyle. You can tell by the shift of shoulders, the weight on one leg. A rifle hangs slung. Maybe unchambered, maybe retired, maybe just not ready to admit it. I feel the crosshairs of habit sweep the square. Not real metal, but the muscle memory of decades. That invisible line brushes my chest and keeps going. Across the old man with his hat, the girl with the tricolor scarf, the woman with carnations smoldering rain-dark red. The silhouette never raises the weapon, but you can sense 1,000 drilled knights arguing with one loud evening. He lingers like a bad weather system that forgot how to rain. "Easy," I murmur. To who exactly, I'm not sure. Him, the square, myself. The slogans are still hanging, but the meaning's already packed its bags. A chant catches, climbs, fractures. The loudspeaker squeals. Someone starts singing the wrong anthem, and everyone corrects him, loudly, generously. I breathe. The figure atop the roof shifts again, then steps backward, swallowed by fog. The square exhales like a giant relieved to find his pockets empty of bullets. For a beat, nothing happens. Then everything does. A couple kiss so fiercely, a bystander applauds. A man lifts his little boy onto his shoulders and whispers something that turns the child's face incandescent. A tram bell rings at the edge of the square, polite and stunned. I step around a puddle that reflects the TV tower perfectly, except for the bit where my boot interrupts and the future ripples. "Onward," I tell the puddle. Puddles are famously compliant. Karl Marx Alley stretches east like a runway, where ideology tried to learn to fly. The Stalinist wedding cake blocks shoulder the night, all stern symmetry and tired grandeur. Their tile skins, once a polished dream, gleam in the rain like old enamel. Street lamps file off into perspective, disciplined as soldiers, too exhausted to rebel. The avenue smells of wet dust and cheap perfume, concrete and courage. Trabbies buzz by like cheerful insects, horns beeping a Morse code of disbelief. ... dash. The wall is ash. Every few meters, hand-painted signs press against windows. "Wir sind das Volk." "Grenzen auf." "Nie wieder Mauer." You can feel the paint still drying, fresh vows pasted on old bones. Small parades form and unform, a cluster of nurses white as saints, a pack of students drumming on buckets, two coal-dusted men holding up a cardboard crown labeled Kaiser Karl with a line through it. Laughter ricochets, loud but raw, the sound of strangers trying on the same grin. At Strausberger Platz, the avenue opens into a space that never knew what to do with itself. Tonight it contains everything: spilled beer, violin strings, cigarette halos, steam lifting off hot asphalt like good spirits finally released. Someone's wheeled out a TV on a cart. A crowd stands in a damp semicircle, watching a journalist attempt the most complex sentence of his career without crying. He fails politely. The crowd cheers anyway. A woman in a trench coat climbs a bench with a pair of scissors and begins harvesting old slogans from a banner draped across a colonnade. She snips out Zukunft and pins it to her lapel, leaving Plan hanging in the rain like a coat no one wants anymore. Beside her, a man carefully peels a portrait of Karl off a kiosk and rolls it into a tube. Not to worship, not to save. Just to keep the paper from dissolving before morning. We are sentimental, even when we swear we aren't. The wind slides through the avenue like a diplomat late to the party. It carries church bells from nowhere, the smell of baked bread from an oven that surely shouldn't be open at this hour, the metallic tang of tram lines, the throat-tight aftertaste of tear gas, ghost flavor left over from a week that ended tonight. Halfway down the block, I pause. Above us, a balcony bristles, with uniforms softened by indecision. Not Stasi, not exactly. House guards, building caretakers, junior somebodies used to telling people where they cannot go. One of them leans on the rail and watches the river of faces pass. He is young enough to have posters instead of paintings on his walls. His cap sits wrong. When he spots me looking up, he lifts two fingers in a small salute that means nothing and everything. I return it with two fingers of my own, a peace sign that's finally literal. Behind me, someone lights a strip of cloth from the torn emblem and holds it like a candle. There's no bonfire, no need. Fire tonight is for illumination, not erasure. The candle is passed hand to hand, and each face it grazes looks briefly like stained glass, a cathedral of human weather lit from the inside. The avenue keeps going. Promises fade from posters but cling to people. Better flats, better bread, better mornings. A brass band appears, crooked and magnificent, attempting ode to joy and landing somewhere between triumph and polka. No one minds. A woman shouts, "Play it again when the sun is up," and the tuba burps its agreement. I stop under a portico where the tiles weep rain in gleaming tears. I lean against a pillar, warm from the day's last heat, and listen to Berlin rewriting itself in present tense. Somewhere far behind us, the gate at Bornholmer is still raised, a jaw unclenched. Somewhere ahead, at the wall's scar near the Brandenburg Gate, strangers take turns with hammers like a ceremonial relay. The city is finding every volume setting at once. A young couple appears at my elbow, sharing a cigarette and a future. "It's real," she says, more to the night than to him. "It's real," he repeats, testing the word on his tongue. I steal a breath of their smoke and it tastes like pepper and rain and the first day of school. I glance back at the TV tower's distant blink and forward to the dark ribbon of Linden. The avenue funnels us, there, toward the quadriga, toward stone horses that still remember other parades. But that's next. For now, Karl Marx Alley hums, a long tiled throat clearing, preparing to sing something that will outlast our coats and our jokes and my soggy notebook. On we go, I whisper. The flags are shredded, the rifles are shy, and the streets are learning their new names. Next stop, the gate, where the city remembers how to be one thing again. The slogans are still hanging, but the meaning's already packed its bags. Chapter 3, Secrets in the Smoke. The smell hits first. Paper, scorched and sweet. The kind of aroma that would be cozy if it didn't reek of state secrets and panic. Straße, headquarters of the Stasi, stretches before me like a bureaucrat's nightmare. Window after window, yellow light seeping through blinds. Each one a little confession booth where no one's confessing voluntarily. Rain drizzles in thin diagonal lines. The color of nicotine. Every drop carries the faint tang of ash. The street's quiet, except for the rhythmic thump of shredders working overtime, metal jaws chewing decades of paranoia. The sound is oddly soothing, like a typewriter composing its own obituary. I pause under a dripping awning, wipe my glasses with a sleeve already wet, and squint toward the windows above. Through a crack in one of them, something flutters. At first I think birds. Then I realize paper. Hundreds of sheets, files, reports, letters, flocking skyward before the flames claim them. Inside, silhouettes dart between desks. One man tosses armfuls of folders into a bin. Another pours something flammable that flashes orange in the lamplight. The files ignite in a fast, obedient bloom. Sparks lick the curtains. For a second, the office becomes a lantern for ghosts. The shredding of sins, I murmur, though no one's asking for poetry. Or maybe just the state's version of spring cleaning. A page catches the wind and flutters down, pirouetting through the rain like an apology. It lands at my feet. I bend to pick it up. The ink has already started to run, but I can still make out a name. Someone's life neatly summarized in columns and checkboxes. Associates. 2. Loyalty. Variable. Variable. I fold the paper, tuck it in my pocket. It feels heavier than it should. Another gust comes. More pages escape. The sky fills with them, tiny white moths escaping the hive. Each one glows for a heartbeat in the firelight before the rain smothers it. Somewhere deep inside the building, a door slams, followed by shouting. Maybe orders, maybe accusations, maybe both. Freedom has a smell tonight. Charred ink and wet brick. It sticks to your throat. A woman emerges from a side door, clutching a stack of folders against her chest. Her hair's plastered to her face, her eyes wide, almost luminous. She looks like someone who's finally found her own file and isn't sure whether to burn it or frame it. She spots me, freezes. For a second, we just stare. 2 trespassers in history's filing cabinet. Then she hurls the papers into a metal bin, lights them, and walks off without a word. Her silhouette disappears into the drizzle, leaving only a hiss as the last page curls black. Behind me, someone laughs. I turn. A pair of students, barely 20, cheeks red from beer and bravery, are snapping photos through the fence. Souvenirs, one of them says, grinning. The other raises a lighter in salute, and the flame wobbles in the wind. I grin back, though something in my chest feels tight. Youth is always best at mistaking endings for beginnings. I walk along the fence line. Burn barrels glow at intervals like ritual fires. Men and women feed them steadily, rhythmically, like priests offering sacrifices to a god that's just been overthrown. Every so often, a gust sends embers flying over the street, tiny red comets disintegrating before they hit the wet asphalt. I glance back once more. The building's facade looks almost serene now, as if the act of destruction has purified it. A paradox wrapped in bureaucracy. Some nights, I whisper, freedom is just what leaks out when the locks melt. I turn toward the river. The air grows cleaner, thinner. The sound of shredders fades into the distance, replaced by the occasional shout, the grind of tram wheels, the nervous laughter of a city caught mid-rebirth. The Karl Liebknecht Bridge stretches over the Spree like a tired sigh. The rain has turned to mist, soft as breath, and the city's glow ripples across the black water in two distinct hues. East Berlin's yellow sodium haze on one bank, West Berlin's colder white on the other. The river mirrors them both, but keeps its own counsel. I stop at the center of the bridge and lean on the railing. My reflection wobbles between colors, half warm, half sterile. A pigeon perches beside me, feathers slicked down, unimpressed by political milestones. You missed quite the memo, I tell it. It blinks once, as if to say, so did most of them. Behind me, faint music rises. Not the electric kind, not celebration, something older, a violin. The sound threads through the fog, thin but sure, one note trembling against the night. I turn. On the far side of the bridge, a man stands under an umbrella, bow, moving slow across the strings. The melody doesn't belong to any anthem. It's more like a sigh set to music. He's playing for no one, or maybe for everyone. The river listens. So do I. Cars roll past, tires hissing on wet cobblestone. Their headlights turn the raindrops into brief diamonds, then swallow them whole. Somewhere beyond the fog, a church bell tolls. Once, twice, then nothing. The violinist shifts, leans into a longer phrase. His music climbs the mist like smoke, curling around lampposts and scaffolds, winding into cracks of buildings still bleeding heat from a long day. Each note feels fragile, like it knows how easily joy can crack under the weight of its own echo. I close my eyes for a moment. The city around me hums, a living machine shedding old gears. On the East Bank, people cheer and break curfews that don't exist anymore. On the West, cameras flash like lightning, desperate to prove they were here when walls learned to fall. Between them, on this bridge, it's quiet enough to hear the river breathe. When I open my eyes, the violinist is watching me. His bow pauses midair. We share a nod across 20 meters of mist and 30 years of history. Then he plays one last note, long, low, perfect, and lets it fade into the sound of water against stone. The bridge trembles faintly under a passing tram. The rails hum. For a second, I imagine the whole city vibrating in tune, shaking off its dust. I light a cigarette I don't plan to finish. The flame briefly paints my face in the same colors the river's wearing, half east, half west. The smoke drifts upward, carrying the ghost of ink and fire from Straße. Freedom, I think, isn't a clean break. It's a slow burn. It smells like rain and old paper, and it leaves fingerprints you can't wash off. I flick the cigarette into the river and watch the ember spin, bright for a heartbeat, then vanish. Across the water, the violinist packs his instrument. The bridge settles into silence again. Only the rain remains, whispering on the surface like a typewriter that's run out of words. Berlin exhales. I turn my collar up and start walking west, boots clicking in rhythm with the river's pulse. Behind me, the Stasi building keeps burning secrets into the sky, and ahead, the faint hum of the city's next life beckons. The mist thickens, the light shifts, and for a fleeting moment, I can almost believe the world has turned the page without tearing it. Tonight, truth unspools faster than courage, but for once, that's enough. Chapter 4: The City Unplugged. Welcome to the most famous box on O Street, I whisper, as Checkpoint Charlie materializes out of the drizzle. The hut like a prop someone forgot to strike after the play ended. Floodlights are off. The sky is a soft bruise. What used to be a machine for separating lives now resembles an information kiosk with boundary issues. Crowds flow around it in eddies. Tourists before tourism. Citizens rehearsing freedom like a new language. Someone has draped a flag over the sandbags, the way a mother tucks a child who's already asleep. A boy in a knitted cap taps the sign with a coin, reading the warning, "You are leaving the American sector," as if it's a bedtime story that suddenly doesn't apply. The air tastes like wet cardboard and possibility. Then the night inhales. From the south, an engine rips the quiet. Low, animal, impatient. Heads turn. The sound gets bigger, closer, meaner. A border patrol truck erupts out of the dark like a bad decision on wheels. Headlights off, grill predatory, tires sawing rain into mist. The crowd freezes, a mass instinct older than politics. You can feel spines remembering drills. You can hear shoes thinking about running. The truck slices through the human river, missing knees by the width of a rumor. A woman jerks her stroller back so fast the baby laughs, because the baby doesn't know the joke. A man throws an arm across his girlfriend like a crossing gate. I step flat to the hut, shoulder to sandbags, counting heartbeats in a new currency. The engine snarls, authoritarian and out of date. It roars past us, toward Mitte, and I catch a glimpse inside through the side window. Empty bench, steering wheel handled by nobody, like a ghost doing donuts in history's parking lot. No driver, no uniforms, just momentum and habit. For a breath, the street holds its pose, cast in wet plaster. Then the spell breaks. A cheer bubbles up, half hysterical, half relieved, teetering between, "We're safe," and "What was that?" A man slaps the truck's tail as it vanishes, as if disciplining a misbehaving dog that belongs to a neighbor who moved away years ago. Empires don't fall, I say to the hut, to the rain, to whoever's listening. They sigh, and someone finally hears it. A kid in a denim jacket asks if that was supposed to happen. I tell him tonight is mostly supposed to happen, and we're lucky enough to watch. He nods like I've assigned homework, and then runs off to catch up with his family. The floodlights flicker and stay off. Berlin has found the switch. A woman with fog glasses presses a paper cup of Glühwein into my hand uninvited. "Wärme," she says, warmth. I take a sip. It tastes like Christmas, and finally. On the sandbags, someone's laid a bouquet of plastic carnations, the kind you'd buy when real ones are illegal or expensive. I set the cup beside them, a small offering to a small building that's suddenly out of work. Behind me, laughter ricochets down Friedrichstraße, ricochets again, and dissolves into the larger roar of a city testing its volume knob. I pocket my hands and follow the sound. Leipziger Straße is a wet artery, glossy with rain and moving. People surge east to west to east, every direction available after decades of only two. The buildings stand back like graying uncles watching the kids make a mess of the good carpet. Neon signs blink for the first time in years, as if anxious to prove they still can. Someone has strung Christmas lights across a balcony. They're all red, as if the apartment only owned half a revolution. The street carries a procession without a leader. Students with paint on their hands, mothers in wool coats carrying thermoses like holy vessels, old men in caps walking with the slow dignity of statues learning to bend. A guy with a broken umbrella brandishes it like a standard. A Trabant rattles along at walking pace, its trunk stuffed with people who are laughing too hard to notice the exhaust. I drift with them, that soft walk you fall into, when the crowd agrees to be gentle. Every block smells different. Yeast from a bakery daring to bake at midnight. Diesel, cheap cologne insured against the future. Someone bangs a saucepan with a wooden spoon. The beat is mostly enthusiasm. I pass a hand-painted banner. We're Sind Higher. We are here. As if the city needs the reminder, and maybe it does. At a side entrance of a dim courthouse, a figure is crumpled on the steps. Soviet uniform, hat off, hair plastered, cheeks raw. He's weeping the way men weep when they think the night is bigger than witness. A flask glints in his hand. The badge on his chest has lost its authority to the rain. Two teenagers pause at a respectful distance, not sure if they should laugh, help, or go write a song. I approach sideways, slow, palms visible, international sign for I intend no paperwork. His eyes are the color of Baltic storms. He looks at me and then past me, to the moving river of people, the flags, the jokes, the stubborn sizzle of freedom on wet pavement. Strana, he says, the country, and the rest dissolves. He tries again in halting German. Meine Heimat ist. He lets the sentence die there, a bird released without a direction. He shakes the flask, offers it. I take a careful sip, a liquid argument for silence. Cheap, clean, inevitable. I hand it back. We sit together for a moment that doesn't check the time. He laughs once, a bark dragged behind a truck. Alles vorbei, he says, all over. The way he says it, you can hear boots on snow, and radios that only had one station, and the long, thin thread of orders that ran from distant rooms into young hands. He lifts the flask in a lopsided toast toward the street. Berlin, he adds, as if the city itself is the thing he must drink to or be forgiven by. Berlin, I agree, throat warm. She's a complicated date. He barks again. This time, it's almost a laugh. Then the crying returns, lighter now, like a faucet that no longer fights the handle. I put a hand on his shoulder. It's the kind of comfort that doesn't fix anything and still matters. We sit long enough to become part of the architecture. Two gargoyles in the rain. A woman steps out of the flow and tucks a knit scarf into his hands. No words, just fabric. He clutches it like a citation for humanity and nods too many times. She squeezes my elbow and disappears back into the procession, absorbed without fanfare. Further down the street, someone drags a TV onto a windowsill, rabbit ears bent, picture drifting in and out like a nervous ghost. The announcer's voice trembles between official and amazed. Every time the image stabilizes, the crowd cheers as if they can bully the signal into honesty. The Soviet soldier lifts his flask toward the TV, toasts again, then takes a small sip and tucks it away like he's decided to ration grief. A marching band appears as if conjured. 3 trumpets, a drum, and a euphonium that refuses to be in tune. They try an anthem, fail cheerfully, and land on a waltz. Couples claim a slice of wet street and turn. Boots squeak, coats billow. Someone nearly collides with a bus stop and bows to it as if it were a partner of good breeding. The crowd claps in 3, and for a minute the rain looks like confetti that forgot to be bright. The soldier watches, hiccups once, then stands. He tucks the scarf beneath his coat with surprising care, squares his shoulders, and salutes the dancers. Not the flag, not the state, the dancers. It's the neatest edit I've ever seen a person make of his own life. He starts walking east, steady now, hat under his arm, a citizen of an idea that is retired. I don't follow. Some paths require solitude. The procession swells again, louder, softer, wider, truer. Streetlights hum. Storefronts, dark for years at this hour, flicker awake like eyelids remembering dawn. A child rides on his father's shoulders, small boots drumming a rhythm that will outlast all of us. The father points down the long perspective of Leipziger Straße toward Potsdamer Platz and whispers something I don't catch, probably because the future always whispers at first. I fall back into step, mirroring the street's tempo. The city has been unplugged, and instead of darkness, it's full of candlelight, wobbly, intimate, hard to extinguish. Anxiety still lives here. I can see it in the way shoulders occasionally jump at sirens that don't arrive. But the absurd tenderness outnumbers it. Gloves shared, flasks offered, scarves loaned to uniforms that once frightened them. I pass a wall where slogans have been half scrubbed by the rain. The letters hang like clotheslines without laundry. The slogans are still hanging, I murmur, but the meaning's already packed its bags. A tram grinds by, sparks spitting where wheels meet wire. Tiny fireworks for a street that suddenly believes in birthdays again. I take the hint. Tonight, even the infrastructure is celebrating. Ahead, the city bends toward Potsdamer Platz, a wide mouth ready to taste tomorrow. I tighten my coat, step into the river of people, and let it carry me forward. The past is behind us, shredding itself. The future is out there, practicing its steps. In between, we walk. Chapter 5. The Wall. Wake's Potsdamer Platz looks like the scar of a city that never learned how to heal quietly. In the gray wash of early morning, the old border's bones jut out of the mud. Concrete slabs, broken rebar, cables snaking through puddles like veins that refuse to die. The air hums, a mix of diesel and adrenaline, as if even the molecules are vibrating with disbelief. Crowds have flooded in from both sides now, east and west, braided together like mismatched threads, finally daring to knot. The soldiers are gone, or pretending to be. The loudspeakers, those iron throats that once barked curfews and commands, hang silent. But the people are not. The people have found their volume again. Someone's radio spits static and then catches a voice. Die Grenze ist offen. The crowd repeats it like a chant, louder each time, the syllables cracking open something deep inside the pavement. Freedom is a rumor that finally came true, and no one knows what to do with their hands. Then the sound comes, a deep, heavy groan that belongs to neither man nor machine. It's the sound of old concrete remembering how to move. I look left, where a slab of the wall, blackened with graffiti, shivers like an animal trying to shed its skin. Men in overalls have rigged cables to its base. A crane hums to life, gears grinding, metal biting concrete. The slab tilts forward an inch, then another, its rebar tendons screaming as they stretch. Careful! Someone yells in German. Langsam! The cable jerks. The wall answers with a thunderclap. The slab breaks loose, crashing onto the ground with a noise so enormous it becomes silence. Dust erupts. White, choking, biblical. The front row of onlookers staggers back, coughing, waving, cheering. Through the haze, I see a man pinned beneath the fallen chunk, one leg caught under debris, his face a smear of terror and disbelief. Time splinters. For a second, the crowd doesn't move, just stares, frozen in that collective paralysis where everyone's waiting for someone else to be the first good person. Then motion returns. 3 men lunge forward. A woman rips off her scarf to use as a tourniquet. Someone yells for a crowbar, another for a doctor, though I doubt either is standard issue for revolution. I drop to my knees beside the man. His breath comes in quick, shallow bursts, his fingers clawing at the dust. Hold still, I tell him, because it's what people say when they have no plan. The rescuers wedge a steel pipe under the edge of the slab. Muscles strain, faces redden. A chorus of grunts and prayers fills the air. The concrete doesn't care. It's too old for empathy. Then, mercifully, the slab shifts. Just enough. The woman drags the man's leg free, and everyone stumbles back, gasping, laughing, crying. Sounds that share a single throat. The man lies on the ground, bleeding but breathing. His face tilts skyward, and he starts laughing. Loud, cracked, manic. The laughter of someone who just realized he's alive and doesn't know what to do with the surplus. Dust curls upward, lit by floodlights from the western side. It looks almost beautiful, like the wall is exhaling its last secrets. Even ruins, I whisper, want their 15 minutes of beauty. Someone nearby begins hammering at another slab with a sledgehammer. The sound is rhythmic, ritualistic. The first crack echoes down the line. Then another hammer joins in, then another. The wall groans again, the sound less angry this time, almost relieved. The wound is reopening, and somehow that feels like healing. I follow the procession north toward the Reichstag, where the crowd has swollen into a river. The great glass-eyed dome is dark, but light flickers across its stone face from 100 flashlights, cigarettes, and camera bulbs. The steps are packed. Students, workers, priests, drunks, all shoulder to shoulder, breathing steam into history. The wall snakes along the edge of the plaza here, a canvas that's been shouting for decades. Layers of graffiti overlap like arguments. Freiheit, Stop die Mauer, wir sind eins. But fresh paint gleams brightest, bright red, wet, urgent. A boy, couldn't be more than 17, steps up with a can and scrawls now or never in huge letters across the concrete. He steps back, admires his work, then takes out a lighter. Someone laughs nervously. Don't, a woman warns. Too late. He flicks the flame. The paint catches, not all at once, but in a slow, mesmerizing crawl. The letters shimmer gold, then orange, then explode into a line of fire racing across the graffiti like a fuse. The crowd gasps, then cheers, because this isn't destruction anymore. It's performance. Faces turn molten in the glow, eyes bright as stained glass. The wall burns, and for once, it's beautiful on purpose. Look, someone cries. It's writing itself. And it is. Flames trace through older slogans, fusing them together into accidental poetry. Peace bleeds through power. Hope eats steel. The wind carries sparks upward like prayers with no address. I catch sight of the boy again. He's crying. Out of joy, fear, maybe both, and his tears cut clean tracks through the dust on his cheeks. Behind him, someone starts singing. Then 10 more join, then 50. The song is half anthem, half lullaby, rising and falling like a city rediscovering its lungs. A chunk of burning plaster falls at my feet. I nudge it with my boot and watch it crumble into ash. Every empire ends like this, I murmur. Too big to move, too small to stop burning. The fire dies quickly in the rain, leaving streaks of soot that glisten under the floodlights. The crowd doesn't disperse. They stand, watching smoke curl into the sky, half expecting the stars themselves to answer back. A man in a worn overcoat kneels and touches the still warm wall. Cold, he says softly, and laughs. The irony isn't lost on anyone. I look up at the Reichstag, its windows reflecting the firelight like 1,000 blinking eyes. The building has been through every political mood swing of the century and still refuses to crumble. It waits, patient as an old judge who's seen too many trials to be impressed by verdicts. The crowd surges again, pressing closer to the wall. People climb the slabs, kicking at the edges, peeling concrete like bark. Cameras flash, hammers swing. The wall shudders under its own history. Somewhere in the din, a woman laughs so hard she cries. Somewhere else, a man starts praying without words. I back away, watching from the edge of the plaza. The flames, the dust, the laughter, the tears, it all folds together into a single pulse. Berlin's heartbeat, back from hibernation. Freedom isn't a statue or a speech, I think. It's this: 1,000 strangers risking splinters for something they can't define yet. I brush soot from my coat, and it leaves a dark streak that won't come off. A souvenir, I guess. The wall hums again, low and ancient, as if aware it's the last night of its long career. The crowd's hammers fall in rhythm, slow, steady, inevitable. Tomorrow, I whisper. They'll start calling this rubble progress. The rain starts again, soft and forgiving. The fire gutters out. Smoke rises in lazy spirals toward the sky, and the people cheer. Not because it's over, but because it isn't. The wall has woken, and soon it will finally learn how to fall. Chapter 6: The Gate and the Dawn. The Brandenburg Gate looks like a stone metronome keeping time for a city that finally remembered how to breathe. Quadriga. Above, Victory riding her chariot, stares east with marble calm, as if she saw this coming and cleared her calendar. Beneath her, the wall runs like a concrete bad idea, its top slick with dew and footprints, its face tattooed with the world's pent-up handwriting. The night hasn't ended. It's just thinning, the sky rinsed from coal to cobalt. The air tastes like wet paint and cheap champagne. It smells like history's hangover in a bakery at 5 a.m. Then the first climber shows up. He's not a hero at first glance. Stringy scarf, wool cap, coat that looks like it lost a fight with a radiator. But he moves like he's been practicing on fences his whole life. He jogs, plants a boot in the graffiti, grabs a seam of concrete, and pulls. Hands reach from the top, west, east, doesn't matter anymore, and snag his sleeves, haul him upward. He throws a leg over, teeters a second that makes the crowd inhale, then stands, arms wide, crucified against the sky and grinning like a man who just found the door handle on the world. The noise detonates. Cheers ricochet off the gate, hit unter den Linden, and bounce back to Alexanderplatz as if the buildings are clapping too. One becomes two. A girl in a red anorak scrambles up after him, knees muddy, hair a storm. A middle-aged woman tries and can't. 3 strangers become a pulley system and float her up by pure will and wool mittens. Boots thud onto the wall's capstone like a drum line. A line forms. Rope belts, linked hands, knees as footholds. Sparks start spitting from chisels. The hammer chorus tuning up. It begins raggedly, as all honest music does. Tink, tink, tink. Then, tack, tack, tack. Someone finds tempo, and the crowd sinks. Steel bites lime, rhythm bites dawn. Chips of concrete leap into the air like confetti from another dimension, white against the bluing sky. A boy swings too hard, and the chisel ricochets. He yelps, shakes his knuckles, then laughs, because pain is a tax worth paying tonight. Sparks drift onto shoulders and fade, leaving freckles of soot. The wall, which was not built to sing, learns percussion on the last night of its life. Below, The gate in the wall, one of those hasty openings hacked since midnight, sways with human traffic. That's where I see it, an Easterner's hand reaching through a ragged hole, trembling like a tuning fork. A Westerner's hand finds it and holds. No words, just knuckles and palm, and a grip that says years in a sentence. The Eastern hand belongs to a man in a gray suit older than its buttons. The Western to someone in a puffer jacket with a neon stripe. Their thumbs press hard, as if testing reality for structural weaknesses. The man in gray starts to cry without permission from his face. The neon jacket laughs while crying. I feel my ribs try to learn how to expand. Enough observing, I tell myself, which is not a sentence I say often. I shoulder through a braid of bodies, reach the graffiti, and place a boot where 100 have placed a boot tonight. My soul slips. 2 hands catch my coat, one calloused, one soft wool, and yank me upward with the casual strength of a city finally in agreement with itself. Up you go, friend, says the owner of the calloused hand. He's wide as a wardrobe and grinning with all his molars. He hauls me onto the wall like he's done it before, and will do it again for anyone who asks, and for a few who don't. From the top, Berlin looks like a lung filling. On the east, Trabis, tiny, smoky, enthusiastic, poot-poot into the Tiergarten, blue exhaust ribbons curling like birthday candles that refuse to die. A line of them honks in call and response, a 2-stroke symphony, hope with a carburetor. On the west, Alexanderplatz is a champagne field. Corks pop, foam arcs, throats catch. Someone shouts, "Für euch, für euch," and pours into any cup, hand, or open mouth within splash range. Bananas move through the crowd like yellow torches. A woman presses one into an old man's palm with a seriousness that makes me blink. The wardrobe of a man presses something else into my hand. A bottle of whiskey, already open, already fatal. "Zoom aufwärmen," he says, to warm up. I tip it, and the liquid crawls down my throat like a small dragon curls up in my chest. The cold steps back, offended. I wash the taste with air that smells of stone dust and citrus and engine oil and dawn. Werkzeug, someone says behind me. A tool. And a chisel appears, its handle worn smooth by 100 impatient hands. Mine becomes the next. I place it at a seam where frost has pried open a hairline crack. The hammer finds the chisel's head with a satisfying kiss. Stone coughs. I try again. The rhythm below pulls me in. Left, right, pause. I'm carving nothing and everything, a flake at a time. Pride sneaks up my arms like warmth. Around us, the hammer chorus swells. Whole families are at it now. A grandfather tapping where a child's hands can't reach. A teenager swinging like he's breaking curfew into pieces. A woman making small, neat bites as if she's hemming the border. Sparks drift into hair. People pat them out, laughing, as if the fire itself is flirting. The wall's top crumbles and scallops, an eroded shoreline at fast forward. Someone hands me a West cigarette, and someone else offers a slice of bread. Black, with butter shining on it like a promise. I chew and taste salt, smoke, and the kind of kindness that makes your eyes water and your nose blame the wind. A man next to me raises a plastic flute of champagne and shouts a toast so mangled the grammar surrenders, and no one cares. English, German, Russian, French. Words ladder over each other and invent a new language made entirely of exclamation points. Below us, reunions detonate. A woman grabbing the face of a man and laughing like she's scolding him for aging without her. 2 brothers who share the exact same surprised smile, realizing their genes have excellent comedic timing. A grandmother pressing both hands to a teenager's cheeks as if she could memorize the climate of his skin. Money slips from one pocket to another. Westers tuck notes into Eastern coat pockets with conspiratorial winks. A truck idles by, its tailgate a table loaded with coffee urns and bananas. The bananas unpeel into smiles. Someone tries coffee for the first time and stares at the cup like it just proposed marriage. From the Tiergarten side, a bulldozer lumbers into view, paint scabbed, engine complaining. The crowd parts the way crowds part when seeing a tame dinosaur. The driver, mustache, cap, nerves, leans out to check his angles. He brings the blade against the concrete with the gentleness of a dentist and the commitment of a midwife. The wall resists, because that's been its whole job. Then it relents. A rectangular mouth opens, rough, crumbling, miraculous. The first Trabant squeals through, honking itself hoarse. People bang its roof with love until the poor car must wonder whether liberation always involves concussions. On the wall, we keep chipping. Tink, tink, talk. A man 2 arm lengths down knocks free a hand-sized chunk and holds it up, triumphant. He kisses it. He offers it to the woman beside him. She clutches it like a relic and slips it into her bag with the caution of someone pocketing the moon. A girl near my boots scratches her initials into a crumbling edge, pauses, then adds 2 more letters. Someone else's. She wipes her nose with the back of her glove and smiles as if the act itself has legal force. The quadriga looks like it's smiling, which is absurd, but then so is everything else. That's the flavor of the hour. Absurdity behaving like logic. My hands ache pleasantly. I pass the chisel to a boy with the nervous eyes of a person trying to memorize happiness in real time. He nods at me like I'm a relay runner who did not drop the baton. "Where are you from?" someone asks. I tell them the long version would make us both miss dawn. "Then here will do," the someone says and claps me on the back. A Soviet soldier edges through the crowd below. No helmet, greatcoat open, face washed in the same disbelief as everyone else's. He stops beneath us, lights a cigarette with shaky dignity, and exhales a ribbon that climbs toward my boots. He looks at the gate, at the wall, at his hands, at the cigarette, like it might have answers. Then he laughs once, sharp, broken, and wipes his eyes with the heel of his palm. He lifts the cigarette to me in salute. I return it with the whiskey bottle, which is international law tonight. Down the line, a West Berlin fire brigade hoses the dust off Pariser Platz, and the water turns gray, then silver, then pink as the sun begins to bleed into the horizon. The light arrives shyly at first, then with the confidence of a headliner. It paints cheekbones and damp scarves, sparkles on champagne foam, slides along the gate's columns and finds the wrinkles in coats where hugs have been stored. A violin starts somewhere behind the gate. Just one, thin and brave, a note sustained until it finds a mate in a chorus of voices. "Keen Schoner Land," someone sings. "Wind of Change," someone else counters, whistling and mangling the tune with happy treason. It doesn't matter. The city is humming in the same key. I look down at my hands. The dust has settled into the lines of my palms like a map. The wardrobe man, my rescuer, nudges me and points. In the widening hole below, 2 children, one east, one west, conduct a serious trade, a plastic dinosaur for a Kinder chocolate. They grin with the efficiency of diplomats who skipped the Cold War. Nearby, an old man lifts a banana to the sky and peels it like a priest, unveiling a relic. then takes a bite and starts to cry because sweetness can be an argument with the past. The hammer rhythm slows, not because people are tired, but because they're starting to listen to something else. The roar of embraces, the fizz of bottles, the gossip of birds who do not care about ideology and never did. Chisels tap out thank you notes in Morse the city will remember in its bones. A woman on my left offers me a tiny chipped shard, pale, pitted, no bigger than a coin. For you, she says, so you have proof you were real tonight. We both laugh at the joke we know isn't a joke. I close my fingers around it. It's still warm. I glance west and see storefront windows, just glass and light and mannequins. But the Easterners press close, palms on the panes, grinning like they stepped into a wizard's pantry. Notebooks, oranges, a ridiculous number of radios, shoes that look like disco made a treaty with common sense. A woman stares at a grocery display as if it's a galaxy. A clerk steps out with a tray of paper cups and pours coffee until the urn is as hollow as the old slogans. At my boots, someone sticks a flag into a crack, black, red, gold, and it flutters so close to my fingers I can feel the fabric writing a future on my skin. A man climbs up with a portable radio, holds it to his ear, and starts sobbing again. The announcer must have said something simple and impossible like, "Good morning, Berlin." The sun clears the rooftops, and Platz turns to gold. Dust hangs. Glittering like the city is exhaling diamonds it forgot it had swallowed. I watch two strangers climb toward each other from opposite sides of the wall and meet at the top with a hug that starts cautious and ends crushing. Around them, people are dancing. Badly, wonderfully, boots clacking on concrete, hands clapping on time and off. The Trabants keep honking, because if you were a Trabant and saw this, you'd honk too. I tuck the shard into my pocket beside the old ticket stubs and lucky coin and a note to myself that simply reads, "Show up." The whiskey passes again. I take a heavy drink, the kind that writes warmth on your sternum in cursive. I set the bottle down and press my palm flat on the wall's crumbling top. It feels lighter. Not just physically, morally lighter. Like a story revising itself in real time. This thing didn't fall, I say to nobody and everybody. It finally exhaled. Around me, people shake hands through holes, share cigarettes, exchange addresses on scraps of paper, compare coins like birdwatchers comparing feathers. A boy holds up his chipped piece and shouts, "Souvenir!" A woman answers, "No, Beweis," and taps her heart. Evidence. The sun climbs, shadows shrink. The gate stands serene in its new job of framing laughter. The hammer chorus fades to a domestic clatter. Somewhere, a bulldozer growls again, widening the proof. Somewhere else, a choir that has never practiced together manages a chord that doesn't need rehearsal. I take one last look from this vantage point that belongs to everyone. East and west don't look like directions anymore. They look like mornings. My legs, remember, I am a creature of gravity, not legend. So I let the wardrobe of a man help me down the same way he hauled me up. We hug, because tonight, arms refuse to be unemployed. On the ground, a little girl tugs my sleeve and offers me a banana sticker, that tiny smiling crescent. I stick it on my coat beside the dust and feel ridiculous and correct. Dawn finishes the braid it started with midnight. The city's breath evens out. I step back from the crowd and watch strangers embrace atop concrete that once divided them, silhouettes gilded in newborn light. The gate keeps time. The wall keeps crumbling. The day keeps arriving without asking permission. Rest easy, sleepyheads. The rabbit hole of time holds many more slow steps. Until we meet again, Silas is signing off.